Bible. It'll be on the screen, but there's one in front of you as well. And if you brought your own, I'd love for you to mark this passage. And I'll tell you why in a little bit. Luke chapter 16. Hear these words. Then Jesus said to the disciples, there was a rich man who had a manager, and charges were brought to him that this man was squandering his property. So he summoned him and said to him, what is this that I hear about you? Give me an accounting of your management, because you cannot be my manager any longer. Then the manager said to himself, what will I do now that my master is taking the position away from me? I'm not strong enough to dig, and I'm ashamed to beg. I've decided what to do so that when I am dismissed as manager, people may welcome me into their homes. So, summoning his master's debtors one by one, he asked the first, how much do you owe my master? He answered, 100 jugs of olive oil. He said to him, take your bill, sit down quickly and make it 50. Then he asked another, and how much do you owe? He replied, 100 containers of wheat. He said to him, take your bill and make it 80. And his master commended the dishonest manager because he had acted shrewdly. For the children of this age are more shrewd in dealing with their own generation than are the children of light. And I tell you, make friends for yourselves by means of dishonest wealth, so that when it is gone, they may welcome you into the eternal homes. Whoever is faithful in a very little is faithful also in much. And whoever is dishonest in a very little is dishonest also in much. If then you have not been faithful with the dishonest wealth, who will entrust you with true riches? And if you have not been faithful with what belongs to another, who will give you what is your own? No slave can serve two masters, for a slave will either hate the one and love the other, or be devoted to the one and despise the other. You cannot serve God and wealth. Let us pray. O God, may the words of my mouth, the meditations of all of our hearts, be pleasing and acceptable to you, O God, our rock, our strength, and our Redeemer. Amen. I gotta tell you, pastors have this thing, and it's a list of I ain't ever preaching from that text ever in my whole career list. Right? Don, you got that list? The text that you don't ever want to preach from. This is number 1 on my list. Just so you know, this is the one that you read it and it's so confusing. Anybody else find this text confusing? It is terribly confusing. Doesn't work in my head. Doesn't compute well. And so it's the one parable that I really, please don't make me preach from that. Please don't make me preach from that. Please don't make me preach from that. Oh, and I drew the short straw. Right? And, you know, Pastor Mike and I divide up Scripture to preach from. And it just seems like I get all the ones talking about money. I think he stacked the deck against me on this one. But anyway, so I decided in this text, as much as I don't want to deal with it, I decided, okay, this is the text I'm going to deal with. And this is the text that I'm going to study, and this is the text that I'll be preaching from. These things keep coming up, so we're going to keep diving in, and we're going to dive deep and see what we can find. Search for maybe the full meaning of what this text might say, a greater understanding of what might be going on underneath the surface of this text. So I did. I dove deep. And maybe after I've given you the disclaimer, I will say to you, I pray God will have a word for me and you both. So there's a lot of ways that we can now interpret this text that I read to you, this parable. A lot of ways it can be understood. And scholars and theologians don't agree on the exact meaning and the message that Jesus was trying to get across in this parable. To his disciples, to the Pharisees. I read 4 different commentaries as I prepared this sermon, and each one had a different interpretation of the meaning of this parable about the shrewd manager. And just a topical kind of reading, on the surface kind of reading, would make it seem that Jesus was teaching that it's okay and maybe even wise to cheat your boss. When you read it just for the words that are there, that might come across, right? We might also get the idea that this parable, from this parable, that you can buy your way into heaven. I could see that in that text. Using our worldly wealth for ourselves in order to prepare our eternal dwellings. That's what Jesus seems to be telling us in verse 9, isn't it? He says, I tell you, use worldly wealth to gain friends for yourselves, so that when it is gone, you will be welcomed into eternal dwellings. It's quite confusing. It can be overwhelming. But here's the thing we got to remember. Jesus was consistent in his message throughout the Gospels. He was consistent every time. And one of Jesus' very clear messages was that worldly wealth, used selfishly, does not get us anywhere on our journey with God. Worldly wealth, used selfishly, does not get us anywhere on our journey with God. And his message is no different here. Jesus is teaching us about how to prepare for the future and to prepare for our future with God. We have to be generous and we have to be faithful now. And through this parable, Jesus emphasizes the importance of using our worldly assets to help our friends in need. And he challenges us to be as clever and prudent as the steward in ensuring our future. Don't get me wrong. This parable of the shrewd manager does not condone dishonest thievery. It's not saying cheat your boss. But what this parable does say, what it does do is it turns on the steward's shrewd response to the urgency of his situation. Jesus is trying to urge upon his listeners the fact that we too are in the midst of a crisis that demands an urgent decision if we are to avoid disaster. Salvation is an urgent message. In the same way, one who hears the gospel knows that just such a decisive act is required of any who will stake their all on the coming kingdom of God. It is important. It is urgent. In essence, Jesus is saying, look at the shrewdness, the enthusiasm with which the sleazy shysters and charlatans of this world acquire riches for themselves. If you, the children of light, could marshal just a fraction of that cleverness for God's work, for serving others, what good could be accomplished? What good could be accomplished if we delve into just a little bit of their shrewdness, of their cleverness? The people of this world are shrewder in dealing with their own kind than are people of the light. That means if only we Christians were as eager and ingenious in our attempts to attain goodness as the man of the world was in his attempts to obtain money and comfort, we would be much better people, much better Christians. If only we would give as much attention to the things which concern our souls as we do things which concern our business. Our Christianity will begin to be real and effective only when we spend as much time and effort on it as we do on our worldly activities. So what exactly is the shrewd behavior that Jesus seeks from his followers? One clue's found in that parable itself. And it has to do with how we use our resources, how we act as stewards. Do you know the origin of the word steward? The original meaning of the word steward is a ward of the sty, or a keeper of pigs. Brings new meaning to when my mother would tell me that my room looks like a pigsty, right? I should have said that I'm just a steward. But anyway, I digress. Styward, S-T-Y-W-A-R-D, was the original word. And it goes back to a simple way of life. But it still has a force for us as Christians. We are God's agents to rule a lower level of life. We are not to immerse ourselves in this lower world. Our job is not hoarding of wealth or fencing it in, building bigger barns, right? For our own pleasure, but to circulate it and use it for the benefit of God's life, in God's light, right? When the steward learned that he was about to lose it, or that he did lose his job, he didn't call the people to him and collect their debts and then skip town with all the master's money, right? We got to be on guard against miserliness and the lure of quick money. And this steward might have fallen prey to that before. And he was in this trap, probably originally. But not this time. Not this time. He took his fate and he turned it into an opportunity to secure his future by making friends with the people who owed money to his master. He reduced their debts in order to gain friends. I tell you, use worldly wealth to gain friends for yourselves, so that when it is gone, you will be welcomed into eternal dwellings. Jesus' words here are not focused on a selfish motive, but on an obligation to help those in need. In essence, Jesus is saying, help the poor now in this world, and they will help you in the next. It's not some sort of shrewdly calculating charity, but a life lived in compassion and in sight of eternity. God wants us to come into his eternal presence. And one of the ways that we do that is by fervently, with all that we have, working to seek God's will and to help those in need in any way that we can. If we can be faithful stewards with the little that we have, then God knows that we will be faithful with his eternal reward, our treasure in heaven. God wants us to be intentional in our pursuit of his will and his kingdom. And if we are, we will be rewarded greatly. And that means we've got to lay aside selfish coveting and humble ourselves as servants at the throne of God. No servant can serve two masters. Either he will hate the one and love the other, or he will be devoted to the one and despise the other. You can't serve both God and money. You know this text from Joshua. Choose for yourselves this day whom you will serve. Whether the gods your forefathers served beyond the river, or the gods of the Amorites, in whose land you are living. But as for me and my household, we will what? Serve the Lord. And the people said, far be it from us to forsake the Lord to serve other gods. Friends, wealth can be a master. Materialism can enslave us. But wealth can also serve as a means and an opportunity for securing one's place in God's kingdom if used shrewdly for the sake of others. God requires exclusive loyalty. So choose you this day whom you will serve. Make your investment in your future and serve God faithfully with all of who you are. Fred Craddock, incredible theologian, and any time that I had a chance to sit at his feet and learn, I took that opportunity. And this is a paraphrase from something he would say often. Most of us will not this week christen a ship, write a book, end a war, appoint a cabinet, dine with a queen, convert a nation, or be burned at the stake. More likely, the week will present no more than a chance to give a cup of water, write a note, visit a nursing home, vote for a county commissioner, teach a Sunday school class, share a meal, tell a child a story, go to choir practice, feed the neighbor's cat. And these are the investments we should be making. Whoever is faithful in a very little is faithful also in much. My prayers, my friend, is that God will find us faithful, loving God with all that we have, serving God with all that we have, and loving our neighbor as ourselves. May God find us faithful. Amen.